Have you ever wondered what happens when entrepreneurship, environmental sustainability and venture capital collide? If so, you're like me, and you're in the right place. Welcome to the Green Adventure. On the show, you'll learn from the critical insights of both founders and investors alike. Not random advice or generic guides, but real stories born out of their experience with genuine climate action. We aspire to create a network of people collaborating to build the green economy, accelerating us towards this critical target of net zero emissions. I'm your host and founder of the show, Jake Woodhouse. For all the notes, links and episodes, please visit www.greenadventure.com. Take care when typing that in. Adventure is spelt with a double D. Thank you for listening and enjoy the episode. Today we speak with JP Cerda, founder and CEO of Re-search. Re-search aims to build a marketplace for B2B renewable energy purchasing, recently closing its seed round, including investment from the Green Angel Syndicate. Listen closely for tips on how to market your vision to investors, how important building a talented team is, and how solving real problems is such a successful starting point. JP is at the helm of an extremely exciting cleantech startup. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Hi, JP. Welcome to the episode. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here today.
My pleasure.
So to kick things off, I want to start from a very high level. Can you give us a bit of an overview on what it is you do at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now, I am the CEO of a company called The E-Company. So essentially, we are a half tech, half energy platform that we want to accelerate the uptake of renewable energy globally. And essentially, we are working hard to make things a lot easier for energy buyers. And the strong focus, actually the only focus, is renewable energy. So we kind of convince companies to buy renewable energy and ditch the fossil fuels. And it's been great. It's been a very interesting journey. But now we are getting somewhere, and that mix between energy and tech is working really well. We are in the later stages of implementing AI to the platform, so that the AI algorithm can learn from every interaction, because for us data is the key, and also facilitate the process to all the energy buyers. And essentially make sure that the process gets simplified, and technology does help a lot with that.
Okay, great start. Thank you. So to help the listeners out there, I want to really dig into the problem it is, shall we say, that you're trying to solve. So lots of entrepreneurial ideas come from this base of solving a problem. So can you unpack a little bit exactly what the problem is that you're trying to solve?
Yeah, I mean, the problem is, one, the market is quite complex. Our focus is, currently our focus is power purchase agreement, which is essentially a large contract between the corporate off-taker and the company that builds solar farms and wind farms, in this case a developer. And the problem is that the length of the contract is quite meaty, so it's basically minimum of 7 years, probably up to 15, 20 years, and is a high value contract, so not many companies are happy to commit to. And there's a lot of excuses in the industry, and what we're trying to do is make sure that we simplify every single stage of the process.
Okay, and so to I guess break that back a little bit, as a B2C consumer like myself, we think of energy supply businesses like Bulb, who will sell only a renewable energy contract.
Yep.
You're working in the business-to-business space.
Yeah.
Okay, completely understood. And so the solution then that you're working on today, can you talk through a little bit of that?
Yeah, sure. So essentially what we're trying to do is build a marketplace. So normally, if imagine you're a large corporate, let's say you're Google, and then you've got a target to be X% renewable by 20X, right? And then your options are very easy. So you can either go out to the market yourself or engage with a consultant, in which case it's going to be quite expensive. There's no real neutrality in the market, so there's no player that is quite transparent and neutral. We're trying to be that player. And currently, those are your two options. So you do it yourself and spend a ton of time finding developers and finding projects, or you go through a consultant, in which case it'll be quite expensive and you don't know what your options are and if they're covering the whole market.
And so if I was an SME of some form and I was looking to buy a 10-year contract, a PPA,
yep.
How do I currently go about that then? So the consultant, if I chose that route, how much might that cost me?
Quite a lot. So probably you would start in the 80K region, just to find a project. Mm-hmm. And my previous company was actually a consultancy, so I know what it takes and how complex we make the process just to kind of justify our fees. And it shouldn't be like that. The reason I set up this company is because it should be very, very easy. It should be like going to Amazon and typing in, I want to buy a TV, right? And then all your options for any TV should come up. And what we're trying to do is facilitate that. So any corporate can come into the portal and just say, I want to find renewable energy in my Spanish operations. And then they should be able to see every project, right? And then they can, filter down to exactly the size, exactly the tenure, and just be very simple. And then connect with a developer. That's, I think, how it should be.
Fantastic. So it sounds like the previous experience you had in your last role has been in a sense, that's where the genesis for this company is coming from.
Yep.
And it's always so exciting to meet people and entrepreneurs out there who are working on personal pain points, because you know exactly how much it costs to actually buy a 10-year PPA.
Yeah.
And it's when you spot those opportunities to make someone's life easier for a fraction of the price that you have an interesting opportunity as an entrepreneur to exploit.
Exactly.
Fantastic.
Exactly.
That sounds absolutely awesome. The next kind of step I guess I wanted to go through was really around the customer discovery element of startups. So I guess we've covered the fact that you had a personal pain point in your previous job, or perhaps you noticed an opportunity in your previous job.
Yeah.
Many people struggle with the concept of diving into a startup and founding something for the first time. How much of the customer discovery, so how much research did you do prior to actually deciding to jump into this project research at the moment, and how would you advise someone out there to think about these steps?
Okay, so if we start from the very beginning, my background is quite similar to yours. So I been involved in trading and operations for nearly 10 years. And I was working for very large oil majors like BP and Shell. I was involved in the trading operations of various dark commodities like plastics and sugar and metals and gas. And basically, very similarly to you, what I decided to do was focus on my passion, which was renewable energy. I noticed that fossil fuels weren't doing anything good for the planet, and then took the leap and set up my first company. To be honest, I didn't did a lot of research, which I should have done.
Not much research to start the first company.
To start the first company, right. Exactly. So
you're a second-time founder. So
yeah,
second-time founder. A few mistakes you made the first time around. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, I think if I would have done my research before setting up my first company, I wouldn't have done it. now I look
Which
back.
Sounds so crazy in hindsight, doesn't it? It's like, what am I doing?
I know,
I don't care, let's try.
Exactly. So if thinking about it now, I was a little bit crazy just to take that leap. I literally just had my first kid, and I thought, yeah, it's a great idea to leave the comfort of a huge company and go on my own. And I remember perfectly my first day. I was sitting in front of my desk at home, thinking, right now, what should I do? How do I get my first client? Luckily, it did work out quite well. I exited the business about 4 weeks ago. So we sold to a large Swiss multinational.
Fantastic. Congratulations.
And thank you. And learned quite a lot in the process, because we were self-funded. So I started in my spare bedroom and then recruited this guy. At the time, I couldn't offer him any financial incentive. So I promised him like the world and, the prospect of being part of a very, very sustainable company. And from the beginning, we only advise companies to buy renewable energy. So our strong focus in my previous company was to convince companies to just buy renewable energy. Power purchase agreements.
As a consultant, right?
As a consultant,
so your previous company, you were a consultancy business.
that's
Advising
right,
companies on buying renewable energy.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
exactly. So we started with very small companies within our networks. We went out to friends and family and started buying energy for their businesses and advising them on their strategy, because we did have quite a lot of experience buying for very large corporates. But we also noticed that there was a lot of issues in the industry. For example, the consultancy, the energy consultancy business is quite dodgy. So we wanted to be the most transparent company. So we became a B Corp. We committed to only buying renewable energy for our client. And that was a differentiator 4.5 years ago. There was no other company doing that. And that's how we started getting that
momentum,
reputation in the business.
Yeah.
And then subsequently, when we started getting larger clients, we start getting into the power purchase agreement, which was a fascinating thing, because they were quite popular in the US, and they were being signed like leases or like anything, but not in Europe. And we were wondering why not in Europe. And Europeans tend to be more risk averse, but also the industry itself was putting obstacles that shouldn't be there, and excuses as well. So when I saw that my first company, I thought, actually, this can be done a lot easier with the use of technology. And again, I thought, okay, because it's a tech company, I need to do a. We decided that we needed fundraising, which was quite good fun, and then went for it. And I'm really glad we did, because now it's becoming the norm to be a platform and facilitating a process throughout technology.
Sorry, and JP, just to trace back a few steps there, then you've essentially noticed the opportunity for a software solution to help develop the renewable energy only PPA marketplace here in Europe, and a lot of that experience and opportunity was seen because of your previous business.
Yeah.
And it's through that chronological order you've then gone, right, okay, let's try and exit the first one, and if we can, jump into the second.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah, and to those listening out there, I have to be very honest and admit that I've been lucky to invest into JP at such an early stage in this new project, and it's just this kind of deep expertise in areas that is so interesting as an angel investment, because it's really the people you're investing into, and this insight that he's explaining is phenomenal for this kind of thing. Well, you mentioned the phrase fundraise. It brings me on nicely to the next area.
Yes.
It wouldn't be an entrepreneurship and VC show if we didn't talk about the investment space. So perhaps you could talk a little bit about how you market yourself, how you approach investors, and any tips you have from your experience during this process.
Yeah, sure. So first thing is the market. So the market needs to be quite attractive. The renewable energy space is growing, and not only it's quite profitable as well, but it's actually quite good for the environment. And that requirement on my side was covered, and for the investors that I approached was covered as well. Second thing is to have an innovative idea. So I didn't realize how difficult was it to actually stand out from the crowd, because there's a lot of very intelligent people, a lot of very clever people with great ideas. So how do you persuade a group of investors to choose your idea? And that was one of the main aspects. It has to be innovative, has to be creative, and has to have a lot of potential. And finally, the third thing is the idea itself has to have a lot of future. So it needs to grow. It needs to have very strong growth prospects. And because of the technology side of the platform, it can be very, 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 very big in the future. And we can implement different things like battery storage, peer-to-peer energy procurement. It's the possibilities are great in the space of renewable energy, which is a great industry.
Yeah, and particularly the software angle is also very interesting when you're looking at the scalability of an idea. And you're currently trying to build a business that simply doesn't exist at the moment, and that is the buying and selling of PPAs. So there was actually one company I wanted to mention, which was a business I followed a little bit from a few years ago called Level 10.
Yes,
who've had some pretty good traction actually in the US. And actually I mentioned a phrase, traction, there, which is another topic that I wanted to try and unpack. So we've covered two things there: competition and traction. Perhaps we'll take the first. So you've come up with an opportunity, you've seen the space, you go, right, I need to prove some early traction here and get some investment on board. From the traction perspective, having gained the investment that you gained, how have you gone about trying to pick up your first customers, and some of the areas there that would be really interesting to hear about?
Yeah, absolutely. So we started off by trialing. So we did a minimum viable product about 6 months ago. And tested the concept with a few corporate clients. That went really well. They gave us very honest feedback on what the new portal, the new version should have. We listened very carefully to that feedback, and they became early adopters of the new version. So we've had the new version for a couple of months, and we've already got quite a lot of very large corporates using it. We're still developing the third version of it, which will incorporate the artificial intelligence side of it. But feedback is from your potential clients is very, very important. So we are from the third version going to charge a subscription fee to corporates to use it, but we wanted to make sure that it actually had features that they needed and they wanted. So we're getting there, and it's working really well.
Fantastic, and that's a great product development story, shall we say? So, when you spot an opportunity, that's great, but actually you then have to deliver some form of hack together product to test that hypothesis. And once you do, inevitably people interact with it in a slightly different way to what you expected, and it's then the ability of a startup to be the flexible innovation, I don't know how to describe it, like you can change very fast, basically. So that's the really exciting thing about working in this space, and taking the product from idea to small MVP to a bit of feedback, and then the iteration process. And you mentioned you're already at stage 3. Fantastic, well done. So I just wanted to draw back round to the competition story that I was mentioning.
Yes.
Some of the other areas that we talk about a lot in this space is defensibility, and being an acquisition target, obviously very exciting for the future, but in the meantime you've got to make sure that you don't get gobbled up by the market forces at play. So I appreciate that Level 10 isn't the same business as yourself, but could you talk through a little bit about that when you're thinking of you've got your proven pilot has been completed. Your prototype is in the market. How do you look at the ways forward then?
Yeah, I mean, competition is very, very important, and is quite useful sometimes. In the case of level 10, we didn't know about level 10 when we were developing the MVP, and then we had a interest from the media. So we issue a press release, and about 2 months later, we saw like an exact press release from level 10, and we were like, hang on, these guys are actually doing very, very similar things. And then they are in our radar now because it's quite good to have competitors because what these guys are doing is great, and they're actually focusing on renewable energy, which is fantastic. The market is big enough for various players, and if they get PPA signed, then we're very happy because we've got the same aim. But actually, it's quite healthy to have competition because you don't rest in your laurels, or you stay focused. As you say, you have a lot of advantages for being a startup. Level 10 is very focused on the US. We're very focused in Europe. We complement each other, I think. But yeah, it's good to have.
And inevitably, the energy market in the US is different to Europe. So you've got different energy buyers, you've got different energy generators. There's no reason why a marketplace would cover both. So
absolutely.
I completely follow you.
Yeah.
No, fascinating. It's a fascinating area. Okay, JP, thank you. Well, the next area I wanted to really talk about was your team. So when you're investing into startups, or whether or not you're trying to build a startup, the talent that you're able to attract to your founding team is so important. From whether or not you're going to pay someone the best salary in the world, or actually more than likely not what their market rate would be at one of the large technology companies or at one of the large industry players. So as we mentioned, or JP touched on earlier in the show, I used to work with the fossil fuel business, and there's no way that you would make the same money on a salary as you do in the startup space as what I previously used to. But that's another story. So, could you speak to us a little bit about how you identify the first hires that you make, or the co-founders that you may have in your business, and just how important it is to get the right people sitting next to you every day?
Yeah, I mean, the first hires are the most important thing. As a startup, exactly as you say, you haven't got the resources to just go out to the market and get the best of a certain area. You have to get very creative, and you've got different superpowers as a startup. You've got the flexibility, you've got the excitement, the prospects of growing within the company, and you don't really have them in very large companies, as you know. You get stuck in your position for probably years before you move on, right? It's very difficult to grow very quickly in a large company, and also the work becomes very tedious after a while, because is very repetitive. In the startup world, every day is completely different. I mean, and that's something that is quite attractive to some people as well. So we try very, very, very hard to attract the best talent that we can. I mean, quite a lot of people say that when you hire, you should hire someone that you could work for, and it's so true. So it's very exciting when you start building a team, and then they align themselves with your vision, and then comes to a point where you actually look up to them and think, wow, what these guys are producing, what these guys are doing is amazing. I couldn't have done it. And that's when you think, yeah, I've got a great team, because I'm kind of codependent on them just as much as they are with me. And we communicate very well. Communication is essential, and we work very hard and really well together.
No, awesome. And it's a lot of fun when you get into a good team with some amazingly talented people, trying to envisage a future that doesn't yet exist. And of course, it is fraught with risk, but equally we're working here in the sustainability space, so there is so much value add to be involved in an area where there is genuine impact from the work that you do if it proves to be successful. Now, I cannot overstate more, of course, the potential failure rates are very, very high.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's a nice way to draw to the next area that I want to understand, JP. So it's really about impact and passion. So the space that is, let's say, the clean tech market, the reason that I personally enjoy working in it so much at the moment is the potential impact of the work that you do from a climate change perspective. And it's absolutely essential that we change the way that our economies currently function in order to reduce the emissions levels. I think it's, we certainly will be in agreement on whether or not this is a worthy mission. But this whole question of what gets you out of bed every day, a kind of combo question around passion and impact. So what is it that really gets you fired up about this particular project at the moment? And then equally, if research does become a massively successful business, how much impact do you think it potentially can have from an emissions perspective?
Yeah, so in terms the challenge is what excites me. The fact that I'm creating something that didn't exist is, to me, fantastic. If we go back a little bit, when I was trying to pitch the idea to investors, it was actually quite complex, because when you try to pitch something that doesn't really exist, an idea, then your natural instinct is to say, oh, we are the Amazon of renewable energy, or we're going to be the Match.com of renewable energy, or whatever. Yeah, exactly. So you kind of try to explain a little bit what you're doing with existing companies. But when there's no existing companies, then you just have to go for it and refine your crazy, elevator pitch. Yeah, I know, exactly. But yeah, the challenge is very exciting for me. In terms of the prospects and what's going to happen in the future and the impact that it's going to have, it's massive. So, for example, one key element of my pitch was the size of the market, but it's very, very difficult to quantify, because you can say, okay, the existing renewable energy market is X. So my TAM is X, right? So what we actually trying to do is convert the companies that are using fossil fuel energy or brown energy to renewable. So that's a completely different market. It's 20 times the size, right?
Because I think when you look at some of the stats on resource consumption, so peak coal is around now, oil maybe 2030 somewhere, 2038, gas up into 2060.
Yeah.
Meantime, you look at electricity consumption versus those curves, it's just ginormous, the growth in electricity demand in the next 50 years.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do you calculate your TAM against a market that doesn't even exist?
That doesn't even exist, correct. Exactly. And actually, as we are only consuming, right now, 20% of the energy comes from renewable sources. So we've got 80% of market that we need to conquer. And that's the exciting thing.
No, fantastic. Well, if all going well, the amount of emissions saved from a platform like this would be absolutely ginormous in terms of the energy being consumed being renewable versus the existing fossil fuel market. So fantastic. Yeah. Okay, well, we are coming to the close of this interview. So thank you very much, JP. I guess there's a couple of other areas that I'd love to unpack. We'll have to save it for another time, I guess. But as an entrepreneur, a really important area is mentorship. Just out of interest, have you had any particular mentors along your journey so far that have helped you make your step into entrepreneurship, or helped you make some difficult decisions? And in particular, those moments where resilience is actually possibly one of the largest assets that a founder may have. How important is that to you?
Is very important, especially in the early stages. You need to get as much advice and as much help as you can. As I was saying before, when I started my first company, I just literally dived into the unknown with a desk and a laptop. And then I started to speak to various people, family, friends, people that have been very successful, people that have not been very successful. And it's all that feedback that you can get helps you throughout your journey, because as we discussed before, we were talking that it could be quite a lonely journey.
Yeah,
and
it is sometimes, yeah.
So basically, imagine I started from basically my spare bedroom on my own, talking to myself and and just like, having
goes home, like, what have you been doing all day?
Yeah, just
pretty busy, actually.
Exactly, just having a monologue in myself, saying, JP, what are you going to do now? I don't know. What should I do? So talking to people and talking to every sort of people and getting the advice, but just taking the best advice from each one helped me a lot in my career. And now I'm fortunate enough that I joined an accelerator, and I've got your Angel Syndicate behind me, and I can tap into great minds and people that have been very successful in what they do. But when you're starting your own company without that, the advice that you can get from your family and friends is very, very valuable.
Yeah, no, awesome. Well, JP, 30 minutes has flown by. Thank you so much for your time.
That was really quick.
Thank you very much.
No worries at all. Thank you.
That was The Green Adventure. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the show, then please help us out by sharing this episode with your networks and rating us on the platform wherever you may listen in from. For any questions at all, we'd love to hear from you, so please reach out on social media or email. Whether you're wondering about a technical term that's been discussed, would like an intro to a guest from the show, or even perhaps feature yourselves, we're here to help. My Twitter handle is @JakeWoodhouse, spelled as it sounds but drop the final E. My email, jake@greenadventure.com. Remember, that's ad spelt with 2 Ds. Finally, for the notes, links and episodes that will be coming, visit www.greenadventure.com. Remember, that's ad with a double D. Until next time, we'll be back soon. Thank you and goodbye.